Thank you. We really aspire to have the greatest technology available, and here we are. We have a television with a stream screen and one of our premier presenters to come talk to us about the Rooted campaign. So the way this will go, in just a moment, I'm going to open us in prayer. We're going to give a presentation, and then we're going to have a time of Q&A. If for whatever reason you need some time to digest this, or you'd like for us to send you the slide deck, I'm happy to do that, and then we can answer any questions. This is not the end of any conversation. It's always just the beginning. But I'd love to open us in a time of prayer. God, I'm thankful that we still have spaces and places as we continue to discern how to use your resources for your church. Give us a moment to step aside to understand what's the history of this campaign. What are the ways in which you're calling and leading us, and how can we affirm your commandment to reach out to meet need with real change and difference? Lord, it's for that I pray. Amen and amen.
Good afternoon. I'm Megan Tarrant, and I am co-lay leader of University United Methodist Church alongside Don Baucom. I have served in church leadership since 2018 as the preschool treasurer and also as a member of trustees. Over these years, our leadership teams have managed change and challenge. And today I want to show you where we are, what we've learned, and how, with your help, we're well positioned to grow. Before we dig into the Generosity Initiative itself, I think it's important to look at recent years and how they've shaped our church and who we are as a church today. We were midway through a shift to a new July to June fiscal year to better align with our program and ministry cycles. And Kindred Church was just beginning to take root when the pandemic disrupted how we worship, gathered, and led together. That convergence created a complication for our finances. Because we began on solid footing, received pandemic-era stimulus support, sold a personage, and continued to experience your extraordinary generosity, financial gaps didn't become fully clear until conditions normalized. When they did, we took action. We cut spending, we found savings, and we asked this church for help. And your generosity met the moment. We brought in professional accountants, rebuilt our systems, and began annual independent audits. We've now had 2 consecutive clean audits for fiscal years 2024 and 2025. Our records are accurate, our reporting is sound, and our budget is balanced. Here's where we stand today. As of our June 30th, 2025 preliminary audit, we have roughly $7.3 million in assets and $600,000 in liabilities. Most importantly, we achieved a $186,000 surplus in fiscal year 2025, our second consecutive positive year. These numbers reflect stable financial footing, but we still have work to do, and that's where Rooted comes in. Rooted represents a streamlined approach to stewardship. Instead of holding separate annual giving and capital campaigns, which limit our ability to plan beyond a single year, Rooted brings everything together in one unified plan with a longer range view. Our goal is $4.525 million over 2 years. $2.8 million for regular operations, that's $1.4 million each year. Everything that keeps our ministry going day in and day out. And an additional $1.725 million for debt retirement, endowment restoration, expanded mission support, and deferred capital maintenance. This represents a 61% increase over our current giving, but it's a stretch that positions us for long-term health and impact. Over the past 2 years, lay and clergy leaders carefully shaped this goal. Realizing a need for greater agility, Church Council appointed a budget task force, leaders from each of our administrative committees representing a broad cross-section of our congregation, and charged it with an urgent review of our financial and capital position. Working alongside trustees who commissioned an external facilities survey, the task force developed a campaign to shore up debt, restore our endowment, and address deferred maintenance, all while maintaining a balanced budget. This triaged approach tackles our most urgent needs first, strengthening our foundation for what comes next. Rooted is phase one of a much longer-term plan, positioning us for growth over many years to come. Future phases will be guided by ongoing evaluation of our progress and capacity, building on the stronger footing this initiative creates. Our total bank debt is $550,000. A $200,000 line of credit, callable at any time, provided startup funding for Kindred Church. Today, it's one of the most successful church plants in our conference, fully sustaining its own budget without any ongoing support, financial support from University UMC. A $350,000 loan due summer 2026 renovated the Foxwood Parsonage, which, after more than a decade of deferred maintenance, was becoming increasingly expensive to maintain. The work also optimized the home's layout to create gathering spaces more appropriate for a modern family and clergy use. These investments were made intentionally in alignment with our mission and values, expanding our ministry and ensuring quality clergy housing. And now it's time to close the book on those commitments so we can focus our resources and attention on the next phase of impact. Once this debt is retired, we'll free up about $40,000 annually in interest costs that can be used directly for ministry use. In 2021, we sold the Hayes Road Parsonage after determining it no longer met the standards set by the North Carolina Conference and would have required a major investment to do so. The intent was for proceeds to be invested so the income could permanently support clergy housing. Instead, some funds were temporarily directed to cover near-term clergy housing costs. Rooted restores $225,000 to the endowment, honoring the original intent of the sale. This adds about $11,000 per year in drawdown, strengthening our long-term ability to provide clergy housing and support. Our building, this one, is both a center for ministry and a hub for outreach. Every week it hosts worship, discipleship, and fellowship. That's ministry. It also houses mission partners like our preschool, Scouts, Communiversity, and musical empowerment. That's outreach. We absorb an estimated $74,000 each year in facility costs, so community partners can use this space completely free of charge. That investment reflects our mission to love God, serve others, and build Christian community. We entered the pandemic with deferred maintenance already on the horizon, and those needs grew while the building was closed. Now, with vibrant programs fully re-engaged, the strain on our aging facilities continues. Addressing these needs isn't a beautification project. It's a missional investment, supporting not only our congregation, but also the hundreds of children, families, and partners who rely on this space each week. With the help of Jan Sassaman, trustees commissioned TRC to perform our first comprehensive facilities condition assessment in over a decade. Their recommendations stabilize our mechanical, structural, and safety systems that sustain worship and outreach. Alan Steinbeck, our Wide Circle lunch team leader, conducted a study of our kitchen needs. Alan's plan is the first step in updating the kitchen to a modern, multi-purpose ministry hub. Together, these assessments form the blueprint for our Phase 1 capital renewal plan. Jameson, if you'll take me back one. Great. The TRC assessment identifies approximately $700,000 in critical needs. The key priorities include replacing an aging HVAC system, addressing roof and water infiltration issues, including restoring the sanctuary ceiling, upgrading safety systems, and improving accessibility. A more detailed breakdown of how those resources are allocated and the numbers that back up the total $700,000 are available here, and we do have the full TRC assessment available for anyone who would like to review it. These aren't luxury upgrades. As you can see, they're essential to keeping our building safe, functional, and welcoming. There we go. The kitchen plan requires approximately $100,000 to purchase commercial equipment, improve ventilation, and perform workflow enhancements for outreach, meals, and community events. Again, this is a detailed breakdown of rough costs associated with the $100,000 that Alan identified for kitchen repair needs. And we have those available in more detail for anyone who would like to review them. With capital improvements of this magnitude, there are always unknowns. We're leveraging professional assessments and have built-in contingencies, but we know we'll face hurdles, especially in a building as complex as this one. Our leadership is committed to managing expenses practically and transparently, prioritizing projects by importance and impact. The most critical work will be completed first, while lower priority items may move to later phases if needed as a contingency. Rooted provides $150,000 for direct mission support, meaningfully increasing our community partnerships. We'll deepen our work with Zoe Empowers, Habitat for Humanity, Communiversity, Table, and IFC, all of which you've heard more about in detail in recent sermons, including both Asia, Justin, and Jameson. And I'd like to point out here that this $150,000 is cash to mission partners. It's not an all-encompassing number of how we support our missions. So remembering the $74,000 per year investment in allowing community partners to use this space for free. The $800,000 capital improvement budget that actually our community partners directly benefit from because they use this space that we're going to be shoring up, in addition to all the other ways that this congregation is generous to our mission partners. Looking ahead, Rooted positions us to leverage the Umstead property for lasting community benefit as well. We're in active discussions with the town of Chapel Hill on a greenway extension across the property, and with Habitat for Humanity on a potential affordable housing development. Both would transform church property into tangible community service while generating positive financial benefits for our future. Our total goal for Rooted is $4.525 million over 2 years, a unified plan funding everything from worship to outreach. That includes a 61% increase over current giving, a bold but achievable goal that ensures the future strength of our ministries. We're asking every household to prayerfully consider what an increase looks like for you. Some may double their giving, others will stretch as they're able, and some may give for the first time. Every gift made prayerfully and intentionally helps us move forward together. You can fulfill your commitment in whatever way fits your household, either by giving weekly, monthly, annually, or all at once. You can include an initial gift if you'd like to start giving right away. Bring your card to worship on Commitment Sunday, November 16th, when we'll dedicate them together as a sign of our shared faith and generosity. This is an opportunity to grow for good, to build on a foundation of grace, and ensure our church remains vibrant for decades to come.
Thank you, Megan. Got a time of Q&A now.
That was very informative. Thank you so much. I'm saying this because I don't know who specifically to say it to. Last month, the Joy Group had a very interesting outing to Chapel of the Cross. We learned a lot of things. They hosted us in the beautiful new fellowship hall that they built several years ago, a very large capital campaign, and gave us a walk through their kitchen. The staff member who did said, we made some mistakes in our kitchen. But we didn't take notes. We didn't have time to take notes. But anyhow, I hope when it comes, I mean, I'm a big fan of Alan Steinbeck, and I know he knows what he's doing, and I'm so grateful he did that. But it would be good before that the kitchen renovation people talk to the people at Chapel Cross to learn from their experience.
It's a great idea, and we can certainly do that. We've got lots of friendly relationship with our friends at Chapel at the Cross.
Other questions? This is a reminder that either live today or if you're listening to this online later, you can always send in your questions. It's never too late to ask about how your generosity is being directed. One of the major commitments that Megan highlighted is we've worked very hard to not only have accurate financials, but to have clear communication on whatever information you need so you feel confident that your money is going towards the ministry and the passion that you have for this church community.
Megan, I guess I'll address it to you. 2.8 million for the operating budget. That's, I take it, be 1.4 a year. Yes. I guess the question I'm wondering is that enough? To be quite honest, I'm a little surprised it's not more than 1.4, given our current commitments to all the things we currently are doing.
So I think that's a very good and fair question. So 1.4 million is for what we have identified as a healthy operating budget. One of the things that operating budget assumes is that our generosity for our mission partners is in addition to that number. So for this campaign, our mission partners, our debt retirement, our capital improvements, all of those things are part of that 1.7 additional giving that we're requesting. The 1.4 is a solid number for the regular routine running of our facilities and the staff that it takes to do that. And Jameson may be able to elaborate on that further.
So that's a great question. So the 1.4 does not include the endowment because a lot of the endowment is directed towards regular larger percentages of the building. What this really does is resets the operating budget to take care of the programming expenses it was supposed to do and removes the endowment to just be what it was supposed to, which is to be putting close to $100,000 into the facility every year. So the long-term management of the church then becomes, do we have a current project that this money needs to be directed to? If not, we can then save it. So hopefully, on some of these larger items, if we need $500,000 for a major repair, we're now in a stable financial position where we've banked that literally in a savings account, and then we can then spend it. That's a great question.
So I want to ask a follow-up question to see if this is it. So when I hear your question about the 1.4 annually, I think what's part of that question is, including the endowment, how much more do we raise above that 1.4 annually to support endowment, ministry partners, that kind of thing? So what's that number above that we usually raise?
Right. So that has been averaging close to $300,000 a year. $300,000 in designated support. Yes, but the reason we don't include that in a capital campaign is that is specifically for youth choir trip or youth mission trip or specifically for our mission partners that we raise for outreach. So those are not things that we budget. Those are funds that we direct based on how people give. And what we intend to do is not only raise $150,000 through this campaign, but we also do seasonal fundraising. A great example is Angel Trees coming up, where we partnered with Table. We will raise money for Table that does not count against the 150 because it's a special event. We were trying to isolate exactly what we're going to spend from an operating budget perspective, and then on top of that, we can show the generosity of these above and beyond gifts that go towards everything. Before we cleaned up some of our financials, it was harder for us to track all those individual giving. It all kind of felt like it was in one pot, and now we have very clear distinctions on how we give and why.
So when you send the financial reports once a quarter, whatever they are, I read them line by line. but it's been a while and I've forgotten. So just to follow up, so basically the 1.4 that we're asking each year is pledge. It's a pledge. 1.4 for each of 2 years. What have pledges been for the last 12 months?
Our giving has been pretty close to 1.35 to 1.37 million. So it's the 1.4 is the full. So we are anticipating a little bit of growth for pledge giving, but part of our work to balance the budget is to listen. And this I say you maybe even heard me say a lot here, but I think a congregation over 12 to 28 months shows you what its normal giving pattern is, and we feel like the 1.4 is a pretty healthy level of pledge. Now, we would say that's pledged and unpledged because it's, yeah. Yes, so the 1.4 would almost be our budget this year. Yeah, and in fact, the last 3 years, I think we've been flat to decreased in budgeting as far as, because we've just been trying to work with what we actually have and then make those resources go to all the different needs that they have. It's a great question.
Thank you. It was very reassuring to see the list of task forces or committees and who's on it, people that are obviously trustworthy to me. But I also wonder where else in the church is information coming about what we want to prioritize for spending? I don't feel like I'm hearing as much gathering of information from various constituencies. You know, did anybody ask the senior council, what are our goals? Or did anybody ask the youth ministry, what are your goals? I mean, since a lot of them are represented by clergy, maybe, but I don't feel like I'm being asked.
I think that's a very fair observation, and it's a great question. I think one of the things that we have identified on our leadership teams is that we have accomplished a lot. We're doing a lot is happening. We have not communicated as well as we could have in both directions. I think we really were putting our heads down. We were doing a lot of work. And I think one of the things that we are committed to going forward is more transparent leadership, open meetings for anyone who can come and participate, listen in on leadership team meetings, so that there is a wider and more cooperative, transparent, holistic voice that's helping shape these decisions. I will say that ultimately what's happening here really does feel more like triage stage one. These are things that really have to be done to shore up our space and to honor our commitments to our mission partners in our wider community. I would say once we've accomplished that, there is a much wider conversation that should be had about how we vision forward. So what we're thinking of in this phase really is these are critical immediate needs that we need to address now. The 2-year Unified Budget Campaign also gives us an opportunity early in the first year to start having these conversations about what phase 2 will look like, to see how this campaign is going, to reassess our capacity for phase 2 and phase 3 and onward. So I appreciate the concern. I do think that we've had conversations to make sure that we are communicating transparently. We're inviting feedback and input from all constituencies within our community, and that's something that we're committed to going forward. That's a great question. I think that we're going to see how this 2-year cycle goes and let that inform what the next cycle will look like. I think we've received feedback that the 2-year cycle does work well on an ongoing basis in terms of being able to plan for general operation over 2 years. But that's something that we'll need to answer as a church as we see how this goes.
So that's actually a question maybe you're not asking, but some have asked, so I'll answer it here is, if we were to stay on a 2-year cycle, does that mean we're trying to raise 1.7 million additional every 2 years? The answer to that would be no. But by staying in the 2-year cycle, what that would let us do is, what are the things we need to accomplish as a church? So to your point, that's where I think those conversations drop in. We are starting off with what I would consider a little bit more surgical remarks of we need to take care of these things. But in an upcoming year, maybe we're trying to raise 200 extra thousand because we want to buy a church bus, do these, there could be those kind of items that we're raising. I think that's where that will filter in. And this gives us the clarity to know how much money do we have now, what can that be spent on, and then in the future, if we need to raise additional funds, this is how much we actually need. So I think, Jerry, your observations are right on point with that. I want to be very clear. We're not looking to have 60% increased giving every 2 years. We're not going to be in a perpetual campaign, even if we stay on a 2-year cycle, but that's how we will think about every 2 years, this is a total amount of money that we need to raise as a community for what we want to accomplish. With the one exception being, because of our church's deep heart for our community partners, I would envision that there would be some amount of additional structured giving towards our 5 primary partners, even if that's 50 extra, there will be some flat level giving because that will always be, not just because of Isaiah 58, but I think that we believe that we should never be talking about just our budget if we're not also talking about our community partners.
It seems to me that over the last 2 or 3 years, we have not had an active pledge campaign. We ask for a estimate of giving, but we've not. So I think that this idea of having a pledge commitment is something that can really help us in the future, because this is maybe the first opportunity some of the younger families in our congregation have been asked to make a pledge and to consider it. And so that this is something, an idea or an approach that can be very helpful in the future. And maybe we want to get back to, after this, a pledge campaign instead of just an estimate.
Definitely, excuse me, definitely being more actively engaged with how we talk about generosity. I appreciate Pastor Justin's tailoring of how we probably talk about it here at University UMC, but we want to find a comfort level to talk about how we want to be generous and how those resources are directed, because that's how we all know what collectively we're going to be able to do. So this, to me, is a great first step of, and I appreciate what Megan said, we're doing a little R&D. We're going to do a 2-year campaign. We've done I would consider a pretty formal pledge drive with a lot of information, a lot of wonderful videos. If you hadn't had a chance to watch those in the weekly emails, we really appreciated the cross sections of our community that were able to come and talk about their heart for the church. You may have even noticed someone to my left that was in one of them, but we're thankful that that's the kind of information we want to keep sending out so we keep those relationships going. We have time for just a few more. I want to honor how long we said the event would be, but remember, even if we don't get to your question today, I'd be happy to take your email or phone call at any time and give you any other information you might need. Yeah. It's for the people, for the recording.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so an observation I have, and I'm not the only one that has this, is that we seem to have a lot of missing in action folk between 50 and about 70. And point of fact, on the financial campaign, we had 2 millennials, 2 clergy, and 2 over 80-somethings, which I'm delighted to have those. And I don't know, I took the realm yesterday and I read every name. There are people that have disappeared in this church in the last few years. I don't know if anybody has reached out to them or not. I don't know if we have evangelism, I mean, just, I care about you. I mean, a phone campaign to people to see why they're leaving. I think it's a dilemma that we've got, because that's where the money is in that group. The other thing is, with regard to leadership, I mean, I don't know how many committees. I don't see a missions committee. Maybe there is one. I don't see a worship committee. Maybe there is one. What else? Several things. People want to be asked to participate. And if we ignore people, they're not going to be here. They're not here. So those are just some concerns. One other question is, our conference apportionments in there, because we've been given money by the conference in the past. They've supported us, and I think we need to be faithful.
So yes, a couple of things in there. One is the target demographics are really important. The 50 to 70, which is often your empty nesters, is a really important, not just generosity base, but they tend to be a high-level volunteer base for a lot of ministry because they have differently structured time when children go off to college or wherever they might be. Empty nesters, exactly. So the really question I want to capture, so because this has been asked, the Rooted assumes full apportionments. So I know that for a couple years we were not able to do that, but we will be paying full apportionments going forward. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. He was asking, is the full apportionments in the 1.4, and the answer is yes.
I'm going to turn and talk to you right here. All right, I would suggest that we add the apportionment as part of our ministry partners. It just doesn't happen to be in Chapel Hill in Orange County. It happens to be all over the state. But we're mission partners, and we're mission partners with the conference.
So he's saying the 150,000 that we're raising for our mission partners to the 5 organizations. He's saying add whatever our apportionment payment is that when we start talking about what we give towards missions. Our true mission number is going to be closer to 350,000 than it's going to be. And I think that starts to paint it's a very different kind of illustration. So no, I appreciate that, other guys. So the total number of pledging units fluctuates. So we typically have left at giving units. Giving units over the last 12 months has been right at 314. And I think pledges last year was maybe 170. But there are people that give so regularly that we treat it like it is a commitment. But we hover in about that 300-ish range of total commitments.
And Jameson, would you just rewind for a minute? Will you remind us what what portion of the 1.4 million, what dollar amount is for our annual apportionment payment? And for anyone who is unclear on what that apportionment is, will you tell us what an apportionment is?
Sure. So apportionments is a percentage of your spending, and there's a lot of different categories, but it roughly comes out to about 14% of certain expenditures. And there's been some legislation passed. It's going to fluctuate a little bit from General Conference. But so if you think about 1.4 million, that would be about $180,000 is going to be our apportionments, roughly. And again, that will fluctuate year to year. And what it goes towards is connectional ministries, really, that are local, national, and international. There's a long list, and in fact, it might be helpful to provide a resource that goes into all the apportionments, but something as simple as we support our annual conference, we support university scholarships, there are different kinds of funds that money goes towards. We have general boards and agencies that handle things like the publishing house and other kinds of areas that get resources that then support ministry, and we also have international mission partners. So to be part of a United Methodist Church is to truly be a world-oriented congregation. Every percentage, so about here, if let's call it 15% of your dollar, is going towards these international, local, and then kind of national partners. Includes UNC Wesley, yeah. I want to be a little careful here. This is, Brother Gaddis wants me to name everything, but I would just say this is like trying to name every member of your congregation. I'm going to leave someone out, so I want to be careful here. All members of apportionments are loved and beloved, but there's a laundry list that we would be happy to send out. But this congregation believes in 2 things. We are a connectional church. We have deeply held values, but we also believe in the connection. I mean, that's why we're still United Methodist. And 2, we believe in our mission partners. And so I think that is a very common question that's come up. So we will end with Reverend Waters.
So I really appreciate the detail that went into this. My concern is for the hundreds who haven't seen this. How can we motivate them by getting this?
That's something that I have had a specific amount of heartburn over too. We have done a lot of work over recent years. These committees, we showed the 2025 leadership roster. There are members from 2024 leadership who have been directly involved in helping solve these problems and make these decisions. And I think it's vitally important that people know that we have been making decisions, and I think it's vitally important that we do communicate out. I think we as a leadership team have identified that we need to do a better job of communication. We did have the generosity kickoff. We've had roundtables. We have this town hall. Under a certain amount of duress, I'm being recorded to send this out in email. So I do think that we are brainstorming ways to help get not only this specific information, but ongoing communication more streamlined and accessible to anyone who wants to have that information. And it's something that we will be tackling as we go forward as leadership committees.
Okay, and this may or may not be appropriate for the recording. Okay, but I just want to say, as someone who spent 3 years on the Finance Committee and chaired it for last year, or I think it was last year, 2 years ago, seeing what we've been able to do with the help of the leadership, and particularly the skills and the experience and the commitment that Jameson has had, I really feel that we have really come a long way from trying to figure out where in the world the money was going, what it was doing. It was, serving on that committee and having lots of questions, and now we have answers and we've got a process of going forward. And I just thank all the people who've been, and you played a big role, and I appreciate that.
Well, on that flattering note, I appreciate everyone taking time for this town hall. Like I said, this is not the end of anything. It's only the beginning. We've recorded this with all due duress, but we are thankful to be able to share that with our community, and I really appreciate your time and attention. Thank you. You have fed your minds. Now go feed your stomachs and enjoy your lunch, and we'll meet again soon.